figure out, and that's probably enough. But I just wanted to emphasize that from a large county perspective, Berkeley County perspective, I think that it's particularly important that we have as few multi-county delegates as possible. I think that it tends to have us fracture our focus. It doesn't allow state and county and municipal government to maintain the focus that they could if they had as many delegates as possible that's exclusively represented their county.
Thank you. Just information, what happens in the redistricting traditionally, the House will work on the House of Delegate districts, the Senate works on the senatorial districts, we both work on the congressional, and then out of courtesy, we usually just accept what each chamber had worked on, making sure that, as Bonnie had mentioned, when we overlap, we don't have a lot of gaps. So the multi-member, we have single-member districts as far as the Senate's concerned, because there's only one senator, even though there's two senators per district, there's only one senator up for election at any one time. The contention has been in the House on the multi-member because all delegates are up every 2 years. Therefore, you have some running as pacts and some running individually. And so that's going to be more for the House, but thank you. Any other? Yes, Mr. Saggers.
Mark Staggers, Uncle Kaiser. 30 years ago, I represented this county in the state Senate. And I was on the redistricting committee, and Thornton back then had the same numbers, same logic. He'd been working on this a long time. I know everything's been said, but not everybody said it, so if you'll give me just a couple more minutes. Dale's right, is that this is political. And I know you're taking every effort to make it non-political. But when I sat on the redistricting committee 30 years ago, I was threatened with physical violence because I voted against one of the plans. So it is going to be political. What I would remind you, what these people have told you, is when you're splitting a community, what you're making is a disconnect between the government and the people. There are things that are going to enter your minds when you make these decisions. But as has been pointed out here, when you have this area with Charleston, something's wrong. And it doesn't take a whole lot more common sense. And listening to somebody like a Thornton Cooper, even though politics will come into play, makes more sense. And I think you can honestly go back to your constituents and say, I did a good job. I voted myself out of the senatorial district when I sat on that committee. Now, in all honesty, I was running for Congress, so it didn't mean a whole lot to me, but I did vote myself out. It wasn't one of those where if I lost Congress, I'd have a seat because I was out. So you can stand up, you can put politics behind you and still do the right thing. And that's what I think is what everybody's asking you to do.
Staggers, it was your congressional district that ended up being split up.
If you look at my district, and Dale will tell you, is they passed it in the House, the Senate came to a tie vote. That's how close it was. Or we'd have had the Indians plan, we would have done the right thing. And Dale's right, it took one individual who drew up his plan, and the politics ran it through, and this is what you got.
So this is our opportunity to try to correct this.
And of course, I was the one who was up.
All right, thank you. Thanks for your testimony here. Anybody else that did not sign up? Yes, Mr. Hammond.
Thank you. That's okay. I couldn't agree with Mr. Staggers more. I think he's making a very important point, and I would add to it this, that not only is it political, it's historical, it's constitutional, and as Mr. Cooper's demonstrated over 30 years now, it's also mathematical. And so all those influences have to be brought together at once. With that thought in mind, I just want to address these maps separately for a moment. On the congressional districts, I think it's beyond dispute at this point that we do not satisfy constitutional case law standards for our district, the 2nd Congressional District. Right now, that district is not compact in any sense of the word. It is stretched as long as a line as you can imagine. And so it does not satisfy that requirement of the United States Supreme Court. Second, all of us feel, I think in the Eastern Panhandle, and I don't know about Charleston, but at least in the Eastern Panhandle, we don't feel that we have a community of interest with the people in Kanawha County. We really have different concerns, different needs. So that district is violating two of the standards that you're required to assess. And I'll defer to people like Mr. Cooper and others on how to fix that problem, but I think that problem needs to be fixed. On the Senate districts, the state Senate, turning to the point about the Constitution, for a long time in the state, it's been ignored that our state Constitution requires that state senatorial lines not cross counties. You're supposed to follow county boundaries. And Professor Bastress raised that years ago, and it was raised last time around, and it's still ignored. And the results are plain. You know, we can look down to 6 and see a little bit of Wayne that's carved out into something else. We can look over in Upshur County and see a little bit of that that's over into 15. These are instances of, I think they're gerrymandering, is what I think they are. But certainly, these are things that should be fixed. And to the extent possible, I think you should go back to following our state constitution. It's either that or change our state constitution. But you shouldn't violate that. Now, on the delegate map, I have a proposal that's, I think, a proposal that other parts of the state would agree with, no problem, but it may be an issue over here in Jefferson County, because I'm a resident of Jefferson County. But I disagree with Mr. Blackman to some extent about saying that Jefferson County is so divided into different interests. I think what joins us together is far more than what separates us apart. And I don't think it makes sense to have Jefferson County chopped into so many delegate districts. Other districts in the state, such as, I believe, Monongalia, Harrison, I think Kanawha, someone else could tell me, they have all the delegates run, and the top delegates win the spots, and the people who get fewer votes don't get the spots. And I think that's something we should explore for Jefferson County as well. I think it would strengthen our representation in Charleston. It would give all the people of the county more influence and more power over the vote, and take away some of the divisiveness that the very small chopped up districts that we have right now do. So I would recommend, you know, top 3, 4, 5, however many delegates we have, they win their seats, and the people who get fewer votes, they don't get the seats. And that way we would have a better unity of interest. So those are my points. I do appreciate very much all of you coming here. I appreciate the transparency, and I look forward to the results later this year.
Thank you very much. Okay, any further comments? We're going to open it up for the members up here, because there's a few that would like to speak, and then we can always come back if you have any feedback from there. Before I do open it up, I just want to mention, Mr. Hammer, you know the problem is that the way the numbers and within the 10% variance, there's no way, first of all, Jefferson alone can get a senatorial district by itself without taking part of Berkeley. But if you include all Berkeley and all of Jefferson, then you have a mega senatorial district that's totally, it breaks the bank both ways. So some of those counties are going to have to be divided, but I share your concern that we ought to minimize it as much as we can and follow the Constitution. Although the Constitution may need to be revised because of that, the idea you can't keep counties whole with senatorial. But that's something, there's other aspects of the Constitution we talked about revising as well.